Thursdays of the month to review any development proposals put forward in the neighborhood that are seeking any type of variance or public subsidy from the city. And we have graciously received agreements from the Alderwoman, Shamim Clark-Hubbard, to empower us to review those projects before they go to the city. So if you hear of anything that you think would be worthy of the neighborhood's consideration and this committee's consideration, please forward any information to myself or Monique or Alderwoman Clark-Hubbard, and we'll make sure to get it on the agenda at an upcoming meeting. So tonight we have 2 items on the agenda. The way this will work is that we will present the items, go through a little bit of background, and then we'll let the developer introduce themselves, give a little bit of background on the project, what they're trying to achieve, and then we'll open it up to questions that you can ask them anything you'd like about the project, and they'll try their best to answer. So we're going to start off. We have 2 items on the agenda. We have a redevelopment of a single-family home that is going to be presented by Emmett Coleman, who is acting as the developer. And then we're going to have a discussion about the redevelopment of the Cook School, and that'll be second on the agenda. So first, let's start with Mr. Coleman. He's redeveloping a single-family home. He's looking for committee support for a 10-year tax abatement to help with financing costs for that redevelopment. Monique, do you have the plans and photos that you could bring up?
I do. Please forgive me one moment. Can you all see that?
I see a person. Oh, yeah, I do.
Oh, we can.
I have to make mine bigger.
Actually, let's start with some of the photos, if you don't mind, Monique, of sort of the
No problem.
existing
Yeah,
condition.
one moment now.
While she's getting that picture together, can I ask a question?
Sure.
Okay. This house that we're discussing right now, is this the owner of the house, or is this a developer who is building a house that is to be sold?
You want me to answer that, Jake?
Sure, go ahead.
How you doing, ma'am? Yeah, so we currently own the home. We purchased it from LRA about a year ago, and we are the owner and developer and general contractors for this property.
Okay, are you going to live in the property, or are you trying to sell the property?
Well, our first choice would be to sell the property for anywhere between $150 to $170 a foot. Per square foot, I mean, sorry. So that's the preference. I mean, because of the size of the home and amount of bedrooms and square footage, which we estimate to be about 3,344 square feet, that's kind of pushing a price point that's not, it's not unmanageable, but it's still kind of pricey, for practically any neighborhood in the city. Minus a couple. So yeah, we want to sell it. If we can't, we have other options that we're looking into. If it might be a possibility that I might move into it and sell my property down the street. I live at 5802 Bartmer, right on the corner of Goodfellow and Bartmer. So this is on my block. So I mean, worst case scenario, I could sell mine and move into this property if we have to. But like I said, our goal is to sell it to somebody and when you look at the plans, you know, we'll go into it, but hopefully a multi-generational family is what our goal is.
Okay, and you're
Hold-
saying that you're selling.
Doris,
pursuing-
may I
Oh.
interrupt for a sec? We'll do questions at the end. I'm going to give a brief background on
Okay.
the property, and we'll go through the plans and elevations, and we'll open it up for questions. We'll let Emmett give a little more introduction to himself too. So hold that thought. Sorry to interrupt. This property is at 5835 Bartmer Avenue, which is the north side of the street and the block of Bartmer between Hamilton and Goodfellow Boulevard. If everyone can sort of picture where that is. As Mr. Coleman said, he bought it from the LRA and wants to rehab it, bring it back to its former glory. You can see it's pretty dilapidated. And we have some plans and elevations of the proposed renovations. You can see it's, I'm not sure if that's wood siding on it now or vinyl or what. I would assume probably wood is the old siding. And as part of that, they're looking to replace the existing siding with a similar siding, and it looks like also move around a couple of window locations, and otherwise sort of restore it close to what it was originally. And I don't think I have any more information on that. If we can go to the plans, how many bedrooms is this, Emmett, again?
It has seven. It has 7 bedrooms. So we have a bedroom on the first floor. We will have a bedroom on the first floor. Currently, it has about 6 bedrooms and 2 baths. We'll have a bedroom on the first floor with a 3/4 bath, and then we're pretty much going to move the kitchen to where the dining area was and the pantry. When we look at the plans, we can go over the plans, but you know, we'll have 3 bedrooms on the 3rd floor and 3 bedrooms on the 2nd floor.
Okay, great. I think I'll let you. I mean, it's a fairly, you know, I mean, it's not a simple renovation, but it is a renovation of an existing building, so nothing too earth-shattering about that. So if you can go ahead and maybe introduce yourself and sort of where you are in the process right now, if you are planning on doing any major changes to the floor plans from what is existing or elevations, if you could just run through that as well.
Okay. All right. So if you saw that picture with the weeds in front and the tires, that was the condition of the property when we first purchased it from LRA. We purchased actually the brick building 5831 Bartmer initially off the MLS, and that's the brick building to if you're looking at it to the left. That was the current condition then. We had partners on that one. We're pretty close to being finished on that one. The one next door, so there was a huge tree, a canopy tree, that had knocked the fence over. I don't have pictures of that, but it knocked the fence over from the 2 yards. We cleared that whole yard up. I think it was a total like $20,000-$30,000 to get that both yards cleared, and all the illegal dumping for 35 years. So I'm sorry. Oh, okay, sorry. So we've gone through that process. We cleaned both properties out. We almost finished with our partner's almost finished with the one property next door. We've cleaned it out. We've gutted it pretty much. If you're looking at it on that west side of the house, you can't really see it. I couldn't find a photo of it, but that whole side is out. The wood is decayed and deteriorated. I think from what we guess, it's been vacant since '85. Somebody took the stained glass windows because the stairwell, if you look at the plans, are on that west side of the building. And I think there's beautiful stained glass on that stairway. Somebody took it out a long time ago, so it just rotted. So the whole side of the house is completely gone. If you drive by there now, we have a tarp over the side of the house and tarp over the roof. I mean, it's been raining in there for almost my entire lifetime. So, you know, this will be extensive. renovation. No floor plan is changed, except, like I said, moving the kitchen. So if you look at the first floor plan, to that back left, the very back left, you see a room and you see the bathroom next to it. That's where the kitchen is, and a rear staircase. So we're gonna take the rear staircase out and put a bathroom and ADA. You know, the first floor is gonna be all ADA compliant. And then we're creating a bedroom on that first floor. So like I said, to create multi-generational convenience. And then we're moving the kitchen over to where the dining room is.
Can you explain ADA for those folks that may not know what that is?
Yeah, it's just standards for the American Disabilities Act. They have standards for handicap accessible individuals and people who have disabilities. And you know, that kind of plays into like elderly people if you know they're being cared for at home with their families. But it just has standards like, say, your outlets have to and plugs have to be a certain height, which is lower than the normal standard height. You have, like, say, the microwave would have to be at a lower area. The hallways would have to be wider. Just things that will comply to help somebody that's either in a wheelchair or disabled get around and flow through the space more efficiently.
How much would the renovations be?
Well, we're looking at about $260,000 to $270,000. So we have funding for $230,000 of it, and the rest is coming out of pocket. So we'll put about $30,000 to $40,000 of our own money into this project.
Staying on Bartmer, I didn't see them tear down houses way in better condition than that. I mean, that house there, like you said, half of it is missing. I didn't think it was even capable of pulling back together. Like, I don't know if someone ever been over there, but I didn't think it was capable of pulling back together.
Right.
I mean, it's in terrible. I mean, I stay on this block. I didn't tore a brick house down around 2 houses down from it. I don't know why they tore that down, but that house ain't even brick. So would that 230 be worth it for that house, or what you trying to sell it for 400,000?
Well, we're looking at about 150 to 170 a foot. At 150.
So how much is that total?
Oh, that would be, so 150 is at $500,000, $100. At $150 a foot. Right.
For a frame?
For a frame house, absolutely.
I'm with you.
So, and like I said, if we can't get that, I mean, where's other options? Like I said, we're the general contractor, so I have full confidence in our ability, and it's a frame house, so it's not like it's brick, you know, it's not like we can reframe that no problem. You know, it just takes time and money. So
I love the idea. I'm with you, boss.
I appreciate it, Ariel.
What's your overall timeline?
We're looking at 8 to 12 months.
No, we're not.
And has work started already?
No, like I said, the only thing we've done is clear the property out, cleaned it up, and then we had a temp box dropped today by Southwest Electric. They dropped the temp box, so we're waiting on the inspector to come and inspect it, and then they're gonna get Ameren on the horn, and then the Ameren is gonna hook up the temp box. And then after that, we've had a permit before, so we're gonna have to renew our permit, which shouldn't be a problem. And then once we do that, we're off and running. So.
Hey, Emmett, this is Walter Donner. How long have you been in possession of this property?
I think actual present about 12 to 14 months. I think we had an option on it. I think the LRA, I think, granted it to us 18 to 20 months ago, but we didn't actually close right away. So.
And how does that fit with the, I thought there was a timeline you had to, when you purchased a property from LRA, they gave you a certain timeline to complete the renovations. Is that
yeah, they do
with this property?
Absolutely. Yeah. And we've been in contact with them. They knew the condition of the property. Like I said, and they know, like they know how much we spent on cutting the tree down and the canopy layers in the back and all the illegal trash and all that. They know the situation with because actually our partners that we were partnering with previously on the 5831, they wanted to tear it down. We had a structural engineer come in and he's in the process of giving us drawings, framing detailed diagrams, drawings, and the processes or whatever for that. He's in the process of that now. So they understand the severity of the building and the condition and all that. So we're in close communications with them, and they're pretty satisfied with our process thus far.
Can you tell us a little bit about the actual ask you're asking us to support? So 10-year tax abatement, I guess why 10-year tax abatement? What's that going to help you do?
With the tax abatement, we're looking at, especially with interest rates going up currently, and we don't know the residential or mortgage climate coming forward. So the tax abatement will help us market this property at market value, because without the tax abatement, it'd be harder for somebody to say get a mortgage for that amount. Because like when we got the funding for this project, I actually had to let the appraiser know, because the appraiser was kind of giving me problems, and I'm like, no. And I'm like, no, I'm a realtor. I'm on the MLS, and we have to look within a mile radius. And I had to actually kind of push the button with the appraisal, because he's like, well, I don't see anything this property. There's nothing that compares. And I'm like, well, yeah, there's nothing that compares square footage wise or bedroom wise within the 1 mile radius. But we all know that that's redlining if you don't include within the 1 mile radius of that particular site. So, we already know the problems with redlining and things of that nature. So, we've already had to deal with it already, even before we even start. So I already know that, and then, so I already know that, we might have issues with that, with mortgage companies. And in addition to that, if with a lower tax rate or appraised rate for assessed rate for this property, it could be easier to get the standard price per foot for this property. It might be easier to sell that way because of the tax liability, the less of a tax liability. So, I mean, it always helps to have that, especially when you're kind of pushing buttons, and we want to do a really good job and provide a really good home for hopefully, like I said, a multi-generational family. So.
Would you mind going through and explaining the exterior materials you're planning on using?
Right. Okay. So now currently it has vinyl siding on it. They covered the original redwood siding. So, it would be siding. We would have either vinyl or a composite type shake, like a cedar shake look for that third floor. And then the rest of the house would be either vinyl or composite siding. If the redwood siding isn't in good shape. Looks like the redwood siding's in pretty good shape from what we've seen, except on that west side. We would have to obviously replace all that. But we're going to uncover all that and see the condition of it. But yeah, I mean, it would either be vinyl siding, I'm sorry, or a hardy, or like a composite siding, or we would use the if that's original redwood, we use the original redwood siding on the sides that are good. So we're gonna get new windows. We're gonna keep the prairie style window grills on that, so to keep the same look that they originally had. Those are a little bit more pricey. I think those are about $1,000 a window, if not more. And then we'll have architectural shingles on the roof, if not teardrop architectural shingles. The stone, we've tucked point at that. We'll, obviously keep the stone on the bottom. And then the only part of this drawing, this plan, this elevation that might change, that probably will change, that we're working on now, is when we're working with our other partners, they didn't want to keep the deck on the top of that front porch, but we're going to go ahead and reinstall that and keep the deck. And we have a few columns, original columns from that top deck, and we're going to get those custom milled to match what, or get close to what was there originally. So it'll be a flat. If you look,
what's the top deck you're referring to? Are you talking to the
if you go to the
front
front,
porch?
yeah, if you go to the front facade, right, the picture of it, the actual picture of the property, not the elevations. So you see there's a door right there.
Oh.
Yeah, so we're gonna block that into a window, but we're actually gonna go back to the door, and we're gonna have the deck over the porch. So that's the only difference in the drawings that we have now that we're working on now that will change from the outside.
Hey sis, how you doing? Just call me, holler at you. How you doing?
How are you doing?
Okay.
Hey, Jake, question. How common is it for us to give developers these tax abatements? And I know Mr. Coleman's not on developer, but he's a resident and he's saving a house, a very nice house in our community. But so is it not uncommon that we would do something like this, or that your board would do this?
Yeah, I mean, that's definitely one of the roles of the Development Review Committee is any time a developer is seeking a public incentive that they would come and present to the community and the neighborhood to get a letter of support. So it hasn't happened a whole lot yet, but is certainly common throughout the city and certainly common with these types of renovation projects.
Okay, thank you.
I think a lot of the controversy
else have any
regarding
questions
tax
for me?
abatements comes around new builds in wealthier neighborhoods rather than renovation projects. So yeah, any further questions for Mr. Coleman?
Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I'm concerned about the elevation, the front elevation, and it looked as though there may have been a Jefferson window, but when I look closely, it's not. It's sort of Louis XV door. So they seem to have a double door there. And I'm wondering whether or not we be concerned about the original architectural character of the house and put that deck there rather than to block those windows up.
So I'm sorry. So are you concerned with the Jefferson window versus, I mean, the Jefferson
the
door?
original house, they have those Louis XV doors. It would be to the left, the door, the front, on the front elevation.
Can you go back to the photo?
Yeah, see those bay windows? The bay window, okay. Now look above the door, the entry door, those look like Louis XV doors there. And I'm assuming that may have been a small deck there.
Oh yeah, that's what I was saying. That's the part of the plans that we are changing. We're putting that deck back up there. Those doors right there were there when we purchased the home. So I can't really say for sure the 100% certainty what was there. You know, I don't know if somebody changed them out at some point or not. But yeah, those doors were there, and we will be keeping doors that look like that on there. So we won't be putting like a steel door or anything like that. It will be, you know, the French style doors that we'll keep there. Absolutely.
Thank you.
No problem.
Brian Phillips reminded me that even if we do decide to write a letter of support for tax payment, ultimately that's a process that goes through the city and they will determine that. And obviously it helps the developer if they have a letter of support from the community, but that's not something that we actually decide. So just a reminder on that.
Yeah. And I appreciate you considering. So yeah, and that's why I wanted to make sure the process the way it should be. I feel that, you know, if anybody comes in anything, they should come before us as residents first, you know. And even though I'm a resident, I'm coming to our my neighbors as a developer in GC. So, you know, this is how I want our neighborhood to be. If somebody comes in, they, you know, would need to address us and you know, make us happy first and make us comfortable with them first before even more. And that's exactly how I want to exemplify my properties, you know, with no exception to anything. So thank you, guys.
Great, thank you, Emmett. So go ahead. Yeah.
I was about to say that it shouldn't be a problem with a tax abatement. We just got a boatload of money, but I think somewhere in the neighborhood of $53 million to assist in tax abatement. And we're going to have to spend it.
Good to know. Doris, you had a question? You're on mute now.
All right. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
My question is concerning the pricing of the house, and to know, I'm asking the developer, what neighborhood or where did you go specifically to set your sale price? My concern is that our neighborhood may interfere with you at this time getting the 500,000. And the other thing is, what is the square, once everything is done, what's the square footage of living space?
The square footage is 3,344.
Mhm.
So that's the square footage. And as I said before, I'm a realtor too. So I know the price per foot, especially in our neighborhood. So there's a house right around the corner that just closed, not recently, for I think it was like 154 a foot on Thornby. Is right around the corner. Looks like a little castle. There's a house currently on the market on Bartmer for 171 a foot. And
Okay,
sorry,
could you, I have been in real estate also, but it's been a long, long time ago. I think what would help me more is just to know the selling price for a property similar to you and where you came up with your selling price. You did say 500,000, right?
$100. That would be at 150 a foot as per square foot. Yes, ma'am.
No, I'm just trying to get the price you said you're going to try to sell houses. It's going to be how much? 100 and what? The selling price that you're going to ask
for that property, at $150 a foot per square foot, it'd be at $500,100.
Okay, and I'm saying, with that information, where did you get a home that was similar to that in a nearby neighborhood? Because I know you compare the prices.
Oh, you're talking about based on the appraisal, per square foot. I mean, I didn't even look at the appraisal. I haven't looked at it. I haven't asked for it. Like I said, there was a guy, the guy that was an appraiser. We had to go back and forth for about a week because he was telling me, he was saying, oh, well, north of you. I said, well, it doesn't matter. It's within the mile radius. But homes, they use as a comparison for square footage. But I would imagine that we're looking at the Bolivar Place, Skinker de Bolivar, within our neighborhood as well. We have some larger homes in our neighborhood that there's a house on Clemens that's under contract, and that's probably like 2,900 square feet, but it has about 6 bedrooms. So that's a close comparison, but not an exact.
How much is that house compared to yours?
That
I'm
one's
just trying to look at.
No, you're fine. No, you're fine. Theirs is under contract at 171 a foot, and that was about 2,900 square feet. They're asking 450,000 for that one on Clemens.
Okay.
And then there's a couple on Thornby. There's a couple on Beverly. There's like 1 or 2 on Beverly Place. Obviously West Cavity Place. But there's none that have closed. There's only been a few that's closed that's been to that square footage. There's a couple in Academy that are over 3,000 square feet. But yeah, I mean, if you want me to send you something, I can send you some exact comps as far as square footage. If you would like, just go ahead and, if you want to put your info in the chat, I can go ahead and send you that. Absolutely.
Okay, thank you. And I commend your plan to build or refurbish market rate as opposed to low income, because that's going to pull people who have money into this neighborhood. It's a great neighborhood. So I'm glad that you're concentrating on market rate.
Absolutely. Yeah. And like I said, and that's why I moved to this neighborhood, because I loved it. I mean, I met Joe about 5 years ago, Joe Palm, and I fell in love with the neighborhood. I mean, my dad's lived in the neighborhood for 11 years, so I already knew the neighborhood, but I love it. And And that's one thing that I think we need to do is focus on improving our neighborhoods right now within ourselves first before we depend on other people from outside our neighborhood to value it. And that's where I think a lot of problems lie. But I agree with you 100%, Ms. Flores.
Okay, I can't navigate the chat, but I think Monique probably has my contact information, or maybe she can give me your contact information.
Yes, ma'am. I'll put my contact info on here so you'll have it in the
Okay.
chat. And then if Monique,
I don't know how to get to the chat. That's what I'm saying.
yeah, no, that's fine. I'll put my info in right now.
Yeah, we'll get it to
I'll
you.
put my cell phone on here. Okay,
Okay,
and then
thank you.
then they can give me yours. No problem.
Okay.
Likewise, if anyone else is wanting any additional information about anything, feel free to put your contact information in the chat as well, and we can distribute that. Okay, any final questions for Mr. Coleman? All right, so the way this works is that we're going to move on to our next agenda item, and then at the very end, we'll have sort of a discussion, and then we'll vote on accepting on whether we want to provide a letter of support or not. So we will move on to our second agenda item, which is Cook School. So Monique, do you have what I sent, or do you want me to share my screen? Was that mouth share my screen? Okay. Very good. All right, is everyone seeing my screen?
Okay.
Excellent. Okay, so a little background on the project. We don't have the developers here with us tonight, but I want to give everyone a little bit of background on what has happened so far with this project, the developers in this committee, and sort of where we are today. And I have the presentation that the developers presented to this committee during the summer, which I want to go over with everyone here again, just to show sort of where the project is and what the project actually is doing. So a little history. A while ago, 2 years ago, years seem to blend together these days. The developer, Will Lieberman and Adam, and I'm blanking on his last name, came with a proposal to redevelop the Cook School, a property that they've had for many years. And they had tried to redevelop it as a charter school. But because the school was previously owned by St. Louis Public Schools, they put a deed restriction on the property that prevents any new owner from making it into a school. Basically, that was their way of making sure that there wouldn't be any competition for them when they sold the school. So they were unsuccessful with trying to convert it into a charter school. So then they started looking at what else they could do with the building. And their initial proposal a few years ago was to renovate the building into low-income senior housing. And they tried to apply to the state to get financing and tax credits for that without getting a whole lot of input from the neighborhood. And that left a bad taste in a lot of people's mouths. And ultimately, the project was denied and didn't happen. And so after that whole process, they wanted to sort of reset, do a whole bunch more of getting community input to see what the neighborhood actually wanted to happen with the site. So we met at the site one day. They've come to the development review committee meetings, has gotten some feedback there. And ultimately the feedback was that Neighbors do not want to see low income housing on the site. They want to see market rate housing, and they want to see a further build out of the complete site with single family homes or townhomes. And so the developer heard that and started looking at ways to make that happen. And so currently where they are at in the process is that they've applied for state historic tax credits. They got the building listed on the National Register of Historic Buildings to help with that process. And they are now proposing to renovate the building with market rate apartment units. And then part of the surrounding lot, it's a big lot, would be parking for that building. And then further phases down the line would construct single family homes and or townhomes on the site. So I'm going to run through the presentation really quick and sort of show what those plans were. And then there will be, I'm going to give a little bit more explanation on sort of where they're at now, and then I'm sure we'll open it up for discussion. So my computer is being a little bit slow, apologies. So they're proposing on creating 66 market rate apartments total. There would be 8 one-bedroom units, 16 studios, and 16 two-bedroom units on the second and third floor. ADA, Americans with Disabilities Act, what Emmett was talking about earlier, accessible units on the ground floor, larger studios on the first floor, and then also some studios and one-bedroom units on the first floor. So here's some example unit types. So a one-bedroom. A good thing about these old school buildings is that they sort of lend themselves nicely to conversion of apartments with the large windows and the long, wide corridors. So these types of units, you'd have a large window sort of in the living room area next to the kitchen, and then a couple of buildings sort of on the corridor side. Oop, sorry. And that's what that would kind of look like on a typical floor there. The elevation, the exterior of the building they're proposing would stay pretty much the same. Obviously, they would do some additional sort of site and landscaping work around the building. But in terms of the materials on the building, they would be, repairing and replacing materials where needed and necessary, replacing the roof, replacing windows where needed, but it would ultimately look pretty similar to what it was today, albeit, cleaned up and looking more towards what it looked like when it was first built. But there'd be nothing drastic happening on the exterior of the building. So that was a brief overview of the presentation they gave us in July. And this committee, after hearing that presentation and their commitment to making this market rate housing, gave them a letter of support for historic tax credits for the building to apply as they applied to the state. And we said that, we like the plans as it's looking right now. If there are any major changes to the plans, we would expect you to come back and represent and get new approval from the neighborhood and the committee if anything was to change. And likewise, as if you finish this first phase and move on to the second phase, those additional phases, we would expect you to also get additional approval for each phase of the project. So currently they made their application to the state for historic tax credits. They have not heard back on whether they received those yet. the project could still potentially move forward if they did not receive those. And it would still be market rate units. Although it might take them a little bit longer to get the financing lined up. And there was a notice, I know a lot of you are probably here because there's a notice posted that there is a Board of Adjustment hearing where they're considering doing the zoning for the area to allow for this type of apartment building renovation to happen. So the process with that is that because this was previously a school in a residential neighborhood, schools don't need special zoning, but larger multifamily buildings do. So the way the process works is with the city is that the building commissioner has to deny the application in order for them to go to the Board of Adjustment hearing, which is why it's called an appeal to the Board of Adjustment. And that is where they would be allowed to make their case for rezoning the property to allow for a multifamily apartment building to happen. So that's sort of a brief overview. I tried my best to keep it short and sweet. I'm sure there's probably a lot of questions out there that will me and the committee members will try to answer. And if there's anything that we can't answer, we can forward those questions on to the developer and maybe even set up an additional meeting with them to get questions answered. But I'll open it up to anyone that has questions or concerns.
Good job, Jake.
How many people on a board?
I'm sorry?
How many people on a board, which no one could attend this meeting to give us better clarification? Like they wanted the letter so bad, they out of the whole committee, they could at least have one person come to have to be at the meeting, in my opinion.
Agree.
You're asking about having more residents at the previous meeting?
No, not more residents. The people that want our approval, how many people do they have? I'm sure they have more than one person where somebody could have been on this meeting to get our approval or to answer our questions. Because it ain't that important to them if they ain't somebody to come to this meeting.
Well, I will. There's two developers, so it's Adam and Will, and we didn't put this on the agenda till about 2 days ago. So we didn't give them a whole lot of time, unfortunately, to make themselves available to this. But they did definitely say that they would be willing to, if there's additional questions, to schedule a meeting where they could answer residents' questions. You know, on a future date for sure.
Yeah, I believe that's.
I'm sorry.
You can go ahead. I'm sorry, man.
I agree with you that if it's important enough, they should have some kind of way, even though it was short notice, either reschedule a time for them to come or have a representative to come this time. The other question that I have is how much square footage is each one of those units going to be? The diagram that you showed.
Yeah.
For the units for the lofts, is that for the lofts or just for an apartment?
Let's see. I mean, each different type is a little bit different. So here we go. So the 1-bedroom unit would be a little over 800 square feet. The 2-bedroom unit would be 1,160. And there's a couple of different sort of studio units. One is 332. And another one is, this one doesn't have a square footage on the plan. But since it's an accessible unit, it would probably be a little larger, probably around 500 square feet.
How many?
So out of the 66 total, it looks like there would be 16 units of studios on the 2nd and 3rd floors and 12 on the first. 8, 10. So it looks like well, maybe the easier way to do it would be just to subtract the first and second. So, oh gosh, putting me on the spot with some math here. 24, 26, 30. So maybe it looks like maybe about half.
No, I disagree already with the number of studios. That's too many studios. And the other thing is when people look to apartments now, they're not looking for tight apartments. They're looking for larger apartments. And I think that the architecture of the school and what you said about the windows is a big selling point, but the units cannot be small ones. And again, it's not to ask for, again, a lot of small apartments, because that's the same as an apartment building. We already have too many apartment buildings. It doesn't go along with, I'm going to say, my belief, and I'm glad that there are other people who are a part of this this Zoom, and it seems that people are moving towards, we would like a neighborhood that attracts people who may not be wanting to buy a house. And the loft idea is a good idea. Whoever made that suggestion, because I'm new to this, whoever made the idea about lofts, I hadn't thought about that, but that's a great idea for empty nesters, especially if you're talking about seniors, and having facilities and accommodations within that building that empty nesters who can be either young or older would be attracted to. But
That's
not
a
an
great
apartment
thought.
building, and not with a ton of single family units. No.
So less units, but more larger units that could, be for young families or, retirees, empty nesters, as you said.
Right, because empty nesters they don't like to be in tight quarters. They don't want to be in humongous quarters, but a reasonable time. And then I would also like to know, eventually, not right now, what are the prices for these units that you have planned in this plan?
Yeah, that's not something that I have the answer to, but we can certainly find out.
I will say,
Okay,
Jake,
well,
that there are.
I have a question.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Ms. Doris. I was just gonna acknowledge the three hands raised. Also, please feel free to use your chat. I also put in the chat, if you wouldn't mind, if you're not a part of the DRC, if you want to be engaged in follow-up conversations, so I can capture your information, please put your email address. Ms. Doris, I know. Don't leave before I get your contact information. So thank you. I just wanted to acknowledge the people whose hands were raised.
I think about 30 units sound like some low income stuff. I mean, I stay 2 houses down from on Bartmer, 5800. It's not big enough for 66 new cars, and they're like, 66 units is too much. 30 units, give people some stuff to do downstairs, like a gym or something. But 66 units is too much for that area right there. Like, I'm loving what the neighborhood's becoming. We bring that into the neighborhood, I'm being honest with you, it's not gonna be good for nobody. But the investor.
I agree.
So I'm going to follow up. I did have my hand raised. I want to ask the question, and it's kind of on Mr. Jackson's. What amenities does this builder plan to add to this building, this apartment complex? Did he describe any things like that? Like the Mr. Jackson said, a gym or things like that?
I don't know if we went into specifics yet. That was something that he said he would be looking for input from the community. There is some larger spaces on the ground floor that would lend themselves to amenity spaces like you all are talking about. But to be honest, I don't think they've made any final decisions on any of that yet. So, and I'm sure they would be open to suggestions.
And so I don't see a problem with units that are around 600 square feet, if you call that, like the 1-bedroom units, but these efficiency units at 300 something square feet, that's very little space for anybody to live in. So I'd be very concerned about that.
Yeah.
And who's going to be living there? It's a small space.
Hello.
Hi there, go ahead.
Hi, I stay directly next door to the school. And for the past 5 years, I am the only one that picks up trash, cutting his bushes. So that is a big concern to me. I hear everyone speaking about how big the unit is, but I'm talking about the safety of my home that I got built over here. That apartment, that school is not large enough for 66 units. It's not even large enough for 30 units. Now, if he's talking about maybe 25 with amenities such as something downstairs for the seniors to do, if it's market rate. We do not want any more low income Section 8 housing. We have enough of that over here. We want our homes to stay valued up just like everybody else around the corner. See, I noticed that when I went to the meeting, they were speaking about SPUD, which stood for Skinker Union. Let me rewind. Skinker, what was the P for? Page Union Delmore, which was a great, I loved all of that. But what we're missing is we are a community. There is no I in we. When we're speaking about building up our community, we need to build up every street over here. I keep hearing about Delmore and Skinker and all the beautified things they're doing. They're painting the streets. They're putting all of that, but they stop once they get to Maple. I've noticed that. Oh, all the pretty flowers and all the street signs, all that's lovely, but it stops right there. So if we're a community and we're speaking about all of us, let's talk about us. Let's build it up over here for all of us, not just 3 or 4 streets. Because see, I like everyone on Bartmer and Maple talking, but I stay on Horton, directly next door. On my off days, I'm picking up trash. I'm contacting him when windows are getting broken into. That's become very tiresome. That is very tiresome. And everybody have a lot to say about, yeah, let's go for the gusto. But in the long run, I'm next door to this. I don't want my house value to go down because already I'm picking up trash. Jeremy is on the line. He can tell you that right now. We're constantly cleaning up that alley. And if he can't clean up the alley while the school is vacant, I can imagine when it has units in it.
No, that's great information. Since you are someone that lives directly next to the property, in addition to obviously the issues that you're having with the upkeep of the site and the surrounding land and the building itself, if it was to be redeveloped, is there anything in particular that you would like to see in terms of happening, like right in between yours and that property's lots, to maybe provide you of some sort of buffer? Or what's your sort of most important things that you would like to see done as part of if that site got redeveloped?
I already have a buffer. I have a privacy fence put up already. That's not the issue. The issue is this. When we're stating that we want our community to be great, we want our community, as of in the meeting when you guys were speaking about how they're doing on the Grove or how they did on McCree, that's how we want this area to be. We want our kids to be able to go outside and we want it to be beautified. We want pretty flowers. We want nice neighbors. We want all of that we spoke about. What was that, a week ago in the meeting? When we were down at Delmore Divine, that's what we want at that school. We do not want low income. We do not want Section 8. We want market rate. Loss will be a beautiful. I told him that years ago. When he stated he purchased that school, I said, okay, loss will be great to have. Get some loss in there. I've been to several schools that has loss. And even if he wanted to make a couple of them where some people that had a certain amount of income get 5, maybe 5, that's fine. But to have 66 units, that building is not big enough. I used to box in that building. That building is small. Even if he tore a wall down, Jeremy is on the phone, he builds. That building is too small for 66 units, maybe 30, and not low income.
No, I'm taking lots of notes here, so all good information to have.
Jeremy and Edmund have both had their hand up for a little bit.
Go ahead, Jeremy.
Well, my question was, if this was to be approved, and you got people to agree to make them apartments and everything, is there a chance that it could go back and they make them low income? We don't want them to be low income at all. So we don't want to approve it and then they just kind of go behind the word of them not being low income and make them low income? Will there be like a clause in place to where these apartments cannot become low income? The reason I'm speaking on that is because with everyone, like I'm speaking on just on Horton Place itself, with all the houses that, you know, the people who bought the houses over here, these houses are, you know, 200 plus thousand. If you drop a low income apartment on the block, the value of all of our houses go down. That ain't what we moved over here for.
Right.
So that just not fair to any of us.
Yeah. So
so if
Brian,
the apartment thing was to happen, is there a clause in place that for sure that it cannot be low income?
the way low income housing usually gets developed is that, and the way developers do it a lot, is that they are provided incentives by the state in order to do the work. So without getting those incentives, and in this case, they're not applying for those incentives, if they, for some reason, like decided to, and I don't even know if that's possible, maybe Brian Phillips has a better answer on that, but if they decided they wanted to try and make it low income, they would be losing a whole lot of money without having market rate units, which is something that I can't imagine would be happening. So they're not asking for any of the typical low income subsidies that come with these types of projects usually. So in order to quite literally finance the project, they have to make these apartments market rate. Otherwise, no bank is going to lend the money because there's not going to be enough cash flow if they don't have high rents.
Well, we don't want low income. We don't want low income or Section 8.
Right. So they're not applying or planning on doing either. And I doubt that they'd be able to get financing for the project with, you know, if they decided to do anything other than market rate at this point.
But the way they get it up, everybody knows it's low income. Like 66 units, so small. He might not have it down, but that's his plan. That's why if they're not on the call, we can go back and forth. They can't answer our question. But I think
and that's why I want to ask: are we going to have another meeting with the developers? Because this meeting is kind of. I personally don't see the point, because if we got questions specifically for the developers and they not on the horn, then you just kind of guessing, because you just know what they told you. Right. But they know the answer is definitely 100%. Those are the people we should be talking to.
Yep. No, totally agree. And the plan has been always to have additional meetings with the developers. So the plans that I showed you are just preliminary plans. It's what they had to put together to apply for the state historic tax credits. So they still have a whole process that they need to go through to, you know, come up with their final plans and what they want to build. So that it was always a plan to have more community meetings and get additional input before that final those final plans were drawn up. So as Monique said, make sure, please put your information in the chat. Make sure we have it, so that if they're able to move forward, that we have these additional meetings, that everyone can participate in those.
And Brenda has had her hand up for a minute as well. Brenda, are you available to speak? Oh,
she's like connecting to.
Looks like she's connecting. Hey, I got a long-winded. Whenever you let me know when you're ready for me, because mine is long and winded, and it's straight to the point. So whenever you're ready,
go ahead.
A long-winded, straight to the point.
Absolutely.
That's sort of
no, that's a lot of points there. Exactly. So, fact number one. Okay, I was on this call, and I'm gonna go ahead and put my video on. You know, so you know that I'm totally focused on this. So I was on this call. When was that? When was the last time we were on a call with these developers when they came and said low income, low income, and lowest income senior housing? Was that March or April?
Remember?
I think
that might have been like
I think that was
March
last year.
Yeah, it was
a
last
minute.
year.
I have to check it. It was a minute. Yeah.
So we were on this call last year, and they were saying they wanted this, they wanted that, they wanted this. As a community, we said that we didn't want low income. We wanted mixed income. I think somebody even said, "Hey, why don't you start with giving us a good will going forward and building their market rate housing that they said they were going to do on Bartmer first." And they said they couldn't do that, and they had whatever excuse they had for that. So now we're almost a year later, and we're still talking about this. Now, Brenda or Jeremy, have these developers come to your neighbors, or you or your neighbors? I know Brenda. I know somebody has the developer's number and talk to them, communicate with them all the time. Have they had a conversation like they said they would last spring? Have they come to the neighbors and even had a conversation with them at all? If anybody's on Horton, have they come to you and asked you about anything?
No, they haven't. No,
Okay,
they
so why?
They haven't come to it at all.
Okay, so why? So at this point, I'm kind of upset. This is asinine that we're even having a conversation about supporting this when in a year ago or almost a year ago, there was nobody. He said, yes, I will make time to meet with the neighbors to figure out what they want and come to a solution so we can accept a plausible, positive development in our community. They haven't even come to talk to anybody. Okay. Now we're here. And what really upsets me as a neighbor and me wanting the best for our community, okay? We don't even know, and everybody needs to know this, okay? Because a lot of people don't know this. They're coming on Wednesday before the Board of Apportionment, okay, to get a variance, to get support from the city for a variance to change their building from commercial to multifamily residential, okay? I want you to know this, because when if they allow them to change that zoning to multifamily residential from commercial, from the current zoning that it is and use that it is, then they can do whatever they want if they own the building. They might not be able to get tax abatement. They might not be able to get tax credits without our saying that without our approval. It might be harder, or they might not be able to get it. But if they don't want to ask for any incentives from us or the state or the city, they can do whatever they want because they already own that building. So what frustrates me is that that there is no conversation before there's an appeal for a zoning, for a variance, which is a zoning change within our community for that particular property. Okay, they have it on Wednesday at 1:30. I think some people in Horton have the information. Okay, they put a sign up. The only reason we knew about it is that we walked past the sign and we saw that sign and we took a picture and communicated that with other people in this community. Okay, and I said at that point, I told a few people in our community, I want to see how long this sign lasts, because I don't think there's going to last on this stop sign for more than a week. You're not supposed to remove the sign. The sign is supposed to be there for the 14 or 15 days prior to that meeting. Okay, so so people can look at it and they can come on the Zoom call. They can go into meetings when they're in person and say, this is what I support. I support it. I don't support it. And this is why. Okay. Not 4 days later, that sign is gone. If you go to the corner of Hamilton and Horton, okay, that sign has been cut up on both sides. I don't know if it was the wind, if it was a storm, whatever. I can't tell you. All I know is that sign is gone. Okay. With the Zoom information to go on there on Wednesday, the 16th at 1:30 and say, I don't approve of this because A, B, C, D, E, which is our right. And that sign is gone. That sign didn't last a week. I said that sign won't be there because I've seen it happen before. I've had to apply for signage for variances for home offices, right? To get an occupancy for home office for a business. So I know that sign, they put it up there 2 weeks ahead of time. And it's a $500 fine for removing the sign. It wasn't removed. It's cut on both sides. You go look at the stop sign. It's cut perfectly on each side of the metal on the stop sign at Horton and Hamilton, okay? The wind might have ripped it perfectly in two sections. I don't know. All I'm saying is, if you, and that information needs to be had, that you guys need that information, that Zoom information. So if you guys want that Zoom information, if you want to contact me, contact Jake, contact Monique, we need to get that information out, because that is very infuriating to me that they would even have a conversation with neighbors that they're affecting to come up with a solution to make them happy or somewhat happy or coming to a conclusion, but yet they want to appeal for a variance that I know for a fact that if they get that variance, then there's very little we can do unless they want public money. And that being said, they have a long road for me or anybody on Horton, I can guarantee you, to get anything done, unless it's the perfect scenario. And that's all I got to say. But like I said, if you have any questions, the info is on there. Contact us so you can go on that border apportion meeting at 1:30 on Wednesday the 16th and let them know that they still haven't had a conversation with the neighbors that's going to affect the most. And that's BS. And I'm on.
My question is this whole thing like a vote? Like, we voicing our opinion. Does our opinion matter at the end results?
Well, there's not a, this is just a conversation. So we're not voting on anything on this project today. This is part of the sort of community engagement process. And it's to let everyone know about this board of adjustment meeting that's later this week, and to get everyone aware and to talk about that. So absolutely, your voice matters.
I will say this at the risk of, I have never been necessarily known as someone who's been very vocal in defending Lieberman or Roberts. I will say that there were efforts that I believe to an extent have been sincere to set up a meeting. I will also say that the follow-up, let's say just on both sides, between at least the DRC, but themselves, to get that done has been lacking. But it hasn't been for lack of effort. I do know that they are interested. They've expressed interest multiple times this summer. I think with this being a recorded meeting, and you giving me your contact information, I think that would expedite a meeting pretty quickly. So I don't think that your comments are lost, as it's being recorded and will be publicized. And you also have a space on the 16th as well, as Emmett shared.
And I also want to make the point that, the point of these meetings, the development review committees, and the reason this committee was set up is to give structure to the public feedback process so that developers don't necessarily have to go one by one, door by door, even though that's important, and they should still make that effort to engage neighbors, especially that are directly next to the property they're wanting to develop. But to say that there's been no community engagement, I mean, that's what this process and this committee is for as well. So just a reminder about that.
Can I speak?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay. I agree with the lady who had the concern about maintenance of the property and that part. The problem I find, whether it's low income, market rate, or whatever, is when a developer comes in and do a multi-family dwelling, which we are talking about forms of that, they forget something. And to me, it's a history lesson. Every time in the Black community that there's a multi-family dwelling, hood or whatever, they don't have in the plans how they're going to continue to maintain that property. And I think that is an element that needs to be in there if you're talking about more than one person in the building, whether it's for senior citizens, whether it's for young people, whether it's for rich people or old people. It does not matter if that property, as the lady is saying, falls apart. And if it falls apart or the neighborhood around it falls apart, then people are going to start leaving. And one of the things people look for when they're looking for either a house or a unit is to have a good surrounding community. And when I say community, neighborhood, basically. If the neighborhood has maintained houses, even if you got one that's not, the general neighborhood is. And if they can see that there is an assurance by whoever the developer is that you don't just make a multi unit building and not have something in the plans that's going to make it stand out. Because I have moved in many different neighborhoods, not like a ton, but in the city and the suburb. And I have found that when whoever owns that unit, whoever owns, especially multifamily, whoever has that, they do stop when they start losing money. And then they do start bringing in Section 8 or low income for that building to survive, for that development to survive. And generally, if they can't do it, then it moves over to Section 8, just like in Alpha Gardens, whoever owns that property where the immigrants are, those people were losing money first. After everybody moved out, they used to be there. This used to be a very, very good place to live for all kinds of categories of people. But the moment that Alpha Garden starts not being maintained the way it was in the beginning, little by little, it slipped until it got to the desperate place where somebody is buying it and they're looking for rent. And then that's the focus of the developer. It has nothing to do with caring about the properties around or whatever. They just want to get their money out. That's what they want. So I'm kind of asking, especially the person in that has a background in real estate, the developer, do you know how that happens? Because I know it does happen, where apartment buildings are pretty much saved by still being maintained, still having janitorial groundkeepers, so that they can keep the residents happy, so that they want to stay. And if they want to leave, consider our neighborhood to come and, build a house in or live in a house in. That's what we want to do. And again, I am very pleased with the people that have spoken so far and what the point is, what's very important. So and that's to the commentator, has anybody asked them about maintenance, making sure that a plan is in place so that if you're depending upon the rents, that things stay up to par so that people want to pay a higher rent or a market rate rent?
So that question did come up, and totally agree. Building maintenance and good property management makes or breaks a development for sure after day one when you unlock the building. So
it actually breaks the neighborhood.
Yeah.
Nobody wants to live against a derelict apartment building or a transient apartment building. They don't.
So I think it is worth noting that the developers that own the building and proposing this do have done this type of project before, and they do have a property management company that they use. Specifically, I want to say down on Cherokee Street. I'm trying to remember the name of the property management company they use. I think is it Fox Park Development. Does that sound familiar?
No, it's
Management,
wasn't it Fox Grove?
Fox
Management?
Grove,
I think so.
something Fox.
Yeah, Fox
Whatever
Grove.
it is,
Fox Grove
whatever,
Management. That sounds right.
okay, whatever it is, I have experienced and seen what happens when management or the keepers of the property change, because they do that a lot. And that's when the place starts falling apart. Who's going to be accountable if whoever you gave that job to of maintaining the property? What's going to happen? What's the backup if that owner does not? I'm sorry, not the owner, but the person hired to do the job doesn't do what they're supposed to do.
And I'm sorry, I don't mean to interrupt, but Doris, that was a really good question. Maybe we should, real quick, I'm sorry for everybody who has their hands up. I really do apologize. But maybe we should start looking into some type of written agreement, like a maintenance agreement that developers, when they want to do multifamily, they have to sign off on some type of maintenance agreement that we held them accountable for, because, you know, it doesn't matter unless it's in writing. So that's a good point, Ms. Doris.
Thank you.
No, that's a great idea. I know Tyrone's had his hand up for a while. I know Brenda, you had your hand up for a while, and you might have been having some audio issues. Either one of you have some additional thoughts?
So just real quick, I think what we're hearing, and hopefully, folks that are hoping that to develop in the neighborhood are getting it. Like, there's been quite a bit of, I would say, trauma related to how development has taken place in neighborhoods. And so I still think this is a constructive process. I don't want folks to think that this is not a constructive process. That's the part of the role, at least I hope, that we are helping to serve, to help bring some constructive criticism to what is actually done. And so one of the things that I will say is that now folks hopefully are looking to protect investments for the long term and not just kind of almost pull out cash flow in the short run. And so I think the feedback is important to receive and figure out a way to strategically adjust some of the major concerns that people are having. And hopefully, you know, we can still get somebody to want to continue to move forward, because we don't want to, and hopefully this doesn't come across as folks not wanting development at all, but the concerns about some of the development that's taken place in the past are genuine, real, honest, true concerns that have to be taken into consideration, because unfortunately the scars of previous developers are still fresh for many of us. And so we have to take those things into consideration as we move forward in even this process. And I think this can influence other developers and other neighbors, even for that matter, on how they handle ownership in our neighborhood. And so I just really wanted to say that. I didn't really have a whole lot. I agree with a lot that has been said. We got to make sure we're hearing folks, especially those that are immediately affected by the actions of by the development that takes place in that immediate neighborhood. Those are the folks who are going to have the most impact from what is not done or is done improperly or without much thought. And so that we don't have to necessarily continue down the pathway. There are it seems like some consistent themes about the size, about the type of tenant that the neighborhood doesn't want to see. And really, hopefully, as a developer, folks are hearing that there has been a very persistent history of folks being taken advantage of. And there are a lot of people that are just simply tired of that methodology and that thinking, especially in Black and brown communities. We gotta figure out how to move past that. So I appreciate all the feedback. That was just my only contribution, and hopefully, you know, that made sense. So that was the only thing I wanted to say.
Thank you, Tyrone. That's appreciated.
Agreed.
Brenda, did you have anything you'd like to add? or Brenda's Galaxy Note 9, whoever that is. Nope, not hearing anything. Doris, did you have your hand up again? Do you want to have another thing you'd like to add?
Doris is still trying to figure out how to work this communication. And so
Hey, you're
my
doing pretty
hand was
good for the
going
first
up,
ever
down,
Zoom
up,
meeting.
down.
That's all right, Miss Doris.
Pretty good,
No,
pretty good.
I didn't want to have a meeting. I mean, another comment. So if somebody else wants to talk, I'll put myself on mute.
I got a question, Jake. How you doing?
Hey, Justin, how are you?
Hey,
I'm
Jay.
all right. Hello, everybody. Sorry for my attendance. I went to go watch Wakanda Forever, so I apologize.
No spoilers.
I'm not that type of person, so I'm not gonna do any of that. But after this meeting and beyond, will there be letters that will be going to the various different department heads down in the city? Because I remember from dealing with Vaterod and dealing with the state, remember we didn't send a couple of emails to some other key people, and I was wondering how could we get those going, and if so, who will those people be, and when will it go out? That's my only question.
Are you talking about this development in general specifically, or just in general?
Talking about this one specifically.
So there was a letter that went out as part of their application for state historic tax credits. And previous to that, there was a letter that this committee wrote saying that we could not support the project that got sent out to the state and the alderpersons and all that. To date, those are the only two letters that have been written in regards to this project. Moving forward, I expect, I think it would be good to have a summary letter of this, what was said here today. That should be sent not only to the developer, but to, people involved in the process. And to be honest, I'm not sure everyone that might be at that time, but we can do a little research on that. And certainly everyone that's here today that's provided their contact info will get a copy of what's ever sent out. But I'm anticipating, a letter to be sent out to the developers, and that to spur additional conversations and perhaps another meeting with them and this group, probably as soon as possible. But that's a good point, Justin. And if you have anyone that you think that would be good to send something to, please let me know.
I think we need to send a letter to them people who, and some as well as not just the DRC, some are neighborhood organizations, our elected officials need to send it to this board, CDA, and anybody else who you all may think. But I know most definitely it needs to go to that. I don't know if it's the preservation or the zoning board, but whomever this is, send it to all of them. Everybody on it. I'm not being funny, but so now they won't be able to say we didn't have this on record. We want to cover all our ducks, so we want to go hold people accountable. How and why did this get approved? Help us understand. You know.
Hey, Jay, Walter Bonner, how you doing? Can you clarify something for me, please? I thought I heard you say that the board had initially maybe rejected, or there was some opposition to this, what we termed this low income housing. And now the developer has come back with a new proposal that is not low income housing, but it's now market rate housing. Is that what we're saying?
That is correct. Yeah.
Okay. So if that's the case, and I'm hearing a lot of the voices from the people, and much of which I agree with. And to Ms. Doris, I think as a community, we are going to have to hold these developers and these builders accountable as a community to the standards that we want. The lady that mentioned that she's having to pick up her trash and all that stuff. But I put a pretty neat article out there that I read today on affordable housing. And I'm not saying we necessarily need to be, I think we have a high number of affordable housing in our community. And that doesn't necessarily bode bad if the property is maintained and the owners held to the standards that we as a community want, because we want to be a community that's accessible to all, but we want that all, including the owner, to, I hear people talk about their property values. Yes, we don't want you bringing in, buying property and leaving it to decay and to cause our property values to decline. But that doesn't have to happen. We would want to, I believe, seek that win-win solution where we have, you know, developers, and hopefully this is one where he's listening to our voice, because I think he's listening because he's gone from what I think is low sub-income, what type property, to he's moved to now hearing what we're saying and moving to more market rate property. So, you know, I'd like to see us attempt to make this a win-win. And especially if, but we got to look at the community holistically, but if this is a vacant lot, and it has been for quite a while, and if you can come up with the right type of development, multifamily, I see no objection to that. But it's got to be the right type. It's got to be the type of property that's going to address the concerns that the neighbors have raised here tonight. And I think, again, I'm going to say this here, it is our responsibility as a community, and this development review committee is serving that source for us to go out and express our concerns and share that with the developer. So let's just wanted to add that to it. And please, if you get a chance, I put a very, very good article out there that I would hope everybody would kind of read and get a better understanding from some research on affordable housing. So that's my input. Thank you for letting me have that time.
Thanks, Walter.
Yeah, thanks, Walter. I think you make a really good point, Walter. The problem, I don't think that the problem is from low income housing to market rate. I think the problem that we have right now is simply because a year ago, when they proposed the low income housing, and then that was rejected, and they, on our call, a recorded Zoom call, they said that they would make sure that they reached out to the neighbors, that they had a conversation. So whoever's, I'm not blaming anybody, but whoever dropped the ball on connecting neighbors to developers, that is a really potent problem that we're having if we can't connect a developer to a neighbors on a block that they're trying to develop, that they promised on a recorded call that they would discuss further issues with to resolve these issues. And then all of a sudden there's an appeal for a change in variance. And like I said, again, look it up. If anybody doesn't believe me, look it up. If they get that change in that variance, that change in zoning, if they do not ask for money of any sort, they can do whatever they want to do. So that is the problem. That's more concerning than, yes, we appreciate them changing the situation, but why wouldn't you go through and do what you promised you would do on a board call? Why would you not? I mean, you're talking about a group of 30 residents. You're not even talking about me on Bartmer or Eliana on Bartmer or anybody else on Suburban or anybody else. You're just strictly talking about a group of people on a single block, one-way street in our community, and you can't have a conversation. That is wrong as a $3 bill, like my grandmother used to say, and that's BS. So that's the problem. The whole point of them trying to get an appeal on a variance, and they know that they can do whatever they want if they don't ask for public money without talking to those residents or having a conversation. That's the problem that we have right now, not the low income versus or subsidized versus market rate. Right now, it's the process, the broken process that we've been talking about for years. And we've been talking, and our mayor talks about it. Everybody talks about it, right? So the process is broken, and we're trying to fix the process within our community. Okay. And, you know, here it is at 8 o'clock, you know, and I'm representing my development, and I'm here, and I was supposed to be somewhere at 7, but I'm here because I care and I'm passionate. So I don't, you know, and I had other appointments. So don't say that like, oh, it's okay. They couldn't make it. Like,
hold on. You can't be saying that. You have no idea what they have going on. So
well, I understand that. You're right, Jake.
That's not fair.
Right. No, that's not fair. And I apologize.
You can say they could have made.
I'm
That
just saying that's the
whatever-
process is the problem right now.
Whatever their reason is not a good reason, and someone needs to have told them or offered them a reschedule. And I'm still saying, yes, there should be a reschedule for them to present it to us, because they truly are not asking or even seeking anything from the community. And in terms of what appears to be a fight against affordable and not affordable, no, that's not the fight. We're talking about a diversity in our neighborhood. And one of the things I do think that this committee needs to look at is what percentage of in our community is rental, what percentage is people who own homes here, and in terms of what percentage of houses do we have in existence, and what percentage of market rate houses are units, multi-family as well as single, that are listed affordable, because that matters. If we're talking about we want market rate, then no, it's not a matter of I don't want all affordable. In terms of income and in terms of market rate houses, as opposed to multifamily, what percentage already exists in our community that they're building in, which is between, my understanding is between Page, Delmar, I don't know how far down it goes towards Union, and Skinker. It's a lot of lands that are vacant lots, but we need diverse people coming in. We want to attract a diverse population of people who are going to stick and stay, not a haven for people who are in transit. They're not going to stick and stay. They move a lot. So I think that we need to get together on that in terms of the community itself. And the variable that the young man is talking about, I think that's actually what we need to be fighting against. We don't want them to have a variable. I didn't understand that even existed. So I think that should be handled first. And then we start talking about who's going to move here, the revisit, whatever the extra plan is. They don't need a variance.
Yeah. All right, so we are running low on time. I see Dr. Stearns has her hand up. I'm going to give her the last word, because then we need to take a vote on Emmett's proposal and then talk about sort of next steps here. So, Dr. Stearns.
Brenda's finally connected.
Yeah, I finally
Oh.
connected. I just
Okay.
have just a few very small. Actually, everyone touched. I mean, mostly everyone touched on everything I was thinking and all the questions I wanted to ask. I'm actually on Horton, right by Brandy as well, and she is 100%. She communicates with William, and I'm gonna say this, Jake, and whoever is on the development team, you make time for what's important. And I just found out about this meeting like yesterday. So to me, even though you all was doing this meeting maybe two or 3 days ago, when you knew about it, some of the neighbors didn't even know about it until the day of. So we actually made time to, come into this meeting, listen and observe and things like that. So, as the old people would say, you make time for what you want to make time for. So there's no excuses. I'm sure he's going to make time, or he's not going to reschedule the meeting on the 16th. So, I just think he does a lot of underhand stuff. And if he's considered a neighbor, he's not doing neighbor stuff. This is not right. And everything that everyone said on this Zoom meeting was spot on, everything. Because if we take our situation and compare it to what's going on downtown, there are those loft buildings they're having problems with leaking and the elevators not working. So, and those tenants are having problems with that developer. So, you know, that's all I had to say about it. I mean, it definitely needs to be a new way of allowing these developers and you know, buy up these properties. So that's all I have to say about it.
Thank you, Brenda. Glad you were able to get the audio issues worked out. Appreciate those comments. All right, Dr. Stearns.
Hi, thank you for allowing me to speak. I wanted to say that everybody's comments have been absolutely correct, and I agree with them. I am a property owner on Bartmer, right around the corner, and I have never been approached, not at one time, from this developer. So I have the same feelings that you have and some of the same concerns. What I'd like to say is that we need to show up in force on that Zoom meeting on the 16th and let our voices be heard. Everything that you're saying now, you need to make every effort if we can. I know everybody's busy and working, but if we can show up and let them know our concerns, because I saw a letter that was issued from Adam and Will that stated that they have a tremendous support, even from our elected officials, and that they have letters of support. I have not seen these letters of support.
What?
But I would like to see them.
You should have our letter of support that we sent.
I'm talking about, they said that the ones that they're moving forward with for this meeting on the 16th. I know Monique sent our letter, but I'm talking about the one that they just stated today. I saw an email that they have letters of support.
I think that's probably referring to the letter we sent previously.
I'll look at it again, Jake. But regardless of what they're saying, I think these need to be letters that we should see, or maybe we will see them on the 16th. But I think all of us need to show up, and anybody that's not on this meeting tonight and who could not be here, and I know a few neighbors could not, but I am encouraging everybody to show up on the 16th and move through the process. We cannot hold their feet to the ground unless we do that and act like that. We're here at this meeting, but the meeting that really is important is that meeting where they're asking for a variance. And that was the only thing that I wanted to say.
Great. Thank you very much. Okay. I am going to say we need to vote on providing a letter of support for Mr. Coleman's rehab project. And I will ask Emmett if you could leave us at this time so we can make that vote. But we appreciate your time and continue doing good work in the neighborhood, sir.
All right, thank you. Thank you all for listening to me, and thank you for everything. So have a good night.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Please share your contact information if you're interested in more, or at least just that one person that has everyone else's contact information. Miss Doris?
Yes.
I'd love yours. No, ma'am. I don't think I do. I've been trying to track it down from other people on this call while we've been talking, but
Okay, well, I don't know how to do the technology, but you have my phone number, don't you?
I don't. What's your address? And I'll figure it out. Give me your address, and if you don't mind sharing.
Yes. I don't know, somebody may want to come beat me up for some of these things I'm saying. Don't put me on blast.
Hold on, I'll pause the recording. Hold on.
And could I ask one? Okay. Can I ask one other quick question? We have a lot. I hear you all talking about historical tax credits.
Mm-hmm.
We have a lot of historical areas in our. We got the Cabinet. We've got we've got 2 concrete block historical districts, and so the persons who have been in these homes and could use some help also in terms of what would qualify to help them get tax credits, and also if there is some funding that those persons who have been here, and we do have historical places that we could, have some kind of help with. Because I think we're about to lose a historical house. I hope not.
Yeah,
On the corner of-
a great question. I think it would be good to learn a little bit more about that. I think a while ago there was a change made by the Missouri State Legislature that prevented single family homes from using state historic tax credits, but I may be wrong on that. I think it only now applies to commercial buildings now, unfortunately.
But I think that if you're living already in a recognized historical district, and the district is made up of individual homes that are historic, I think that qualifies.
Guy, do you know anything on that?
If I need to.
I'm not sure. Let us look into that some more. If Guy, if you know anything, then you can feel free to chime in. But
yeah, I will. I think, Ms. Doris, to answer your question, I think if the home's already active, I know that the state and federal historic tax credits apply for like projects that are under construction. I'm not familiar with people already existing in the building, because I know at some point it's like, I'm going to throw out a number, 50% of the construction costs of the place. So if somebody's already living in, I'm not familiar with the ones that.
Okay, but if somebody is trying to rehab one, because I have one that I am trying to rehab, and the former alderperson kept recognizing those areas as jewels, but he never gave the jewels that make up that area any help, except for probably.
I'm sorry, go ahead. I apologize.
So that's what I'm hoping with the new configuration, because I'm looking at the blocks on Julian. We've always kind of been there and not there. And we haven't received any en masse group. And we've got houses and vacant lots and things, but we don't want any old kind of house there. But we do want one that's going to attract someone.
Doris, what is the address or the block of Julian that you're talking about in the zip code, and then we can check that out and let you know.
50, I looked at the plan last weekend. And I wrote a little note saying that the 59, 58, and 57 blocks of Julian, on which two of those blocks, the 57 and the 5900 blocks, are part of historical concrete block. The one on one section is the Oakhurst, and the other one is called Goodfellow. Both of them, we have the largest, from my understanding, and maybe wrong now, we keep losing the houses. We have the largest number of concrete block homes, historical concrete block homes existing in the United States.
Okay, I'll look that up, and I'll share that with Monique and Jake, and then make sure we can get you an answer back on that. Okay.
Okay.
Just to be sure I've got it correct, it's the 5900, the 5800, and the 5700 blocks of Julian Avenue. Is that right?
Okay, the only two that are historical are the 57 and the 59. And then a block on the 59, the historical district is bounded by Amherst Park, Julian Avenue, Oakley Place, and I think it's Plymouth. Within those boundaries are all historical houses. And that area could need some kind of help. Even if I have to help somebody or work with somebody to write a grant to help those, then that's fine.
Okay.
I'll
see what I can find out.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
You bet. Thank you.
Okay. Let's wrap this up. So are there, before I'm gonna in a little bit here just close close the meeting to actual committee members. But are there any members of the neighborhood or the community that want to make any last yay or nay recommendations for the house renovation? Is everyone feeling pretty good on that? Is there anyone against that
Nay.
or would not recommend that?
Nay, I'm a 5886 Bartmer. It's a couple houses that the house ain't worth saving. It's leaning. Half of the house is gone. They covered it up, but half of the house is gone. I'm against it. I don't think you can bring that house back together. I'm at 5886.
You'd rather see it demolished?
Demolished. It's the frame house. It's already demolished. It's halfway standing. It's already demolished. It's not
Is
even
he talking about the house
working.
that guy? I'm confused.
Yep, that's the house.
You can't even walk to a walkthrough.
It's good note.
Hey, Jake, I would be in support of it. If he can save it, that's great. And if he can save it, I mean, you know, he said he had a structural engineer look at it, and he's a developer himself. So I respect Mr. Jackson's opinion, though, and I wouldn't take the chance on it. I wouldn't put my money into it. But hey, if he can do it, that's great.
Okay.
Can I make I'm for it. I'm for him. And in response to the person's concern about it's already falling apart. When I've watched not Lord, but Lafayette Square way back in the time when those houses were messed up. I saw people restore a building with 3 walls standing, foundation gone, no roof, and 1 wall missing. So that was amazing to me. And even afterwards, most of those houses look like they have been bombed. So they are, it's hard for me to not think of a house as redeemable as long as you take the precautions, the engineering, looking at whether or not they have piers if the house is sinking on one side or sinking on all 4 sides. Those are things, when you correct them, they push up the value of whatever house you're talking about.
Yep.
And with a modern open floor plan, then that makes it sellable. And you'd be surprised. I think people who are not talking to us are looking at our neighborhood because they see we're on the upswing. And I'd like for that to continue to happen. So I'm for him. Didn't mean to talk that long.
No, thank you.
You can rebuild a house right there at the same for cheaper. That's what I'm saying. It's a frame house. You can rebuild a house for cheaper than what you want to do. It's a frame. It's not historical.
All right. Any other comments?
With the square footage, it would still be worth saving. And the only thing that I would wonder about, since you said it was not a historical building, instead of putting so much frame on it, which I agree with the unattractiveness of that in terms of getting somebody to want to buy. And the, what did he say? It's not straight siding. It's not old fashioned siding. And he's using quality materials. If he's putting the siding back and he's using Horton, then that's good. In terms of space, that's what people are looking for. That house offers redeemable space, even though it's looking like tear down. But I think that we should refrain from tear down and invest in houses that can be saved. But I do respect the fact that, you're bringing that to everybody's attention.
Great. All right. I am going to, Irv, I see you've had your hand up, but I'm gonna.
Oh, okay, sorry.
I'm gonna close this meeting, and we're gonna have just DRC members, committee members are gonna have a little chat. But really appreciate everyone's input. We'll make sure to send you out a copy of all the letters and make sure you stay up to date on everything here moving forward. And please stay engaged. Really appreciate you joining us tonight.
Thanks, Jake.
Thank you. If you're a DRC member, please stay on for just a couple minutes more.